Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. 90 minutes, not 90 minutes a day, 90 minutes a week, roughly the length of a single football match split across 2 sessions. That is the number a team of researchers tracking nearly 150,000 people for up to 30 years found associated with a measurably lower risk of death from any cause. Not a marginal statistical curiosity, a finding precise enough and large enough to belong in a conversation with anyone serious about the science of a longer, healthier life. Why exercise more was never good enough advice. For decades, the public health message on physical activity has been well-intentioned but frustratingly vague. Move more, sit less, exercise regularly. These are not incorrect statements, but they are not scientific statements either. They give no threshold, no ceiling, no way to know whether you've done enough or whether you are wasting time chasing a benefit that was never there to begin with. The aerobic exercise literature solved this problem years ago. With specific, well-established weekly targets, resistance or strength training has lagged behind its role in reducing mortality, independent of and alongside aerobic activity remained comparatively unclear. That gap is precisely what this new research was designed to close. Inside a 30-year three-cohort study, the study led by researchers at Harvard T.H. School of Public Health and published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, drew on 3 of the most extensive longitudinal health disasters and data sets available in the medical research. The health professionals follow-up study running from 1992 to 2022, the nurses' health study from 2002 to 2021, and the nurses' health study, the second, from 2003 to 2021. Combined, these 3 cohorts followed 147,374 participants, over 31,000 men and more than 115,000 women, for as long as 3 decades. Participants reported their engagement in muscle strengthening activity, free weights, weight machines, and body weight exercises such as push-ups, squats, and lunges. This is not a small pilot study or a short-term clinical trial. This is one of the largest and longest running bodies of evidence available anywhere in the exercise science literature, which is precisely why its findings carry the weight they do. The findings, what 90 to 120 minutes actually buys you. Here is what the data revealed. Participants who engaged in approximately 90 to 120 minutes of resistance training per week showed 13% lower risk of death from any cause, compared to those who didn't. When the researchers examined specific causes of death, the pattern sharpened further. A 19% lower risk of death from cardiovascular disease, and perhaps most striking of all, a 27% lower risk of death from neurological disease, a category that includes conditions such as dementia and Parkinson's disease. Let that neurological finding sit for a moment. Most public conversation about strength training centers on muscle, bone density, and metabolic health. This research places brain health squarely alongside those benefits, a connection that deserves far more attention than it currently receives, both in clinical practice and public understanding. The benefits compounded further when resistance training was combined with aerobic activity, reinforcing a principle those of us in the longevity field have long suspected but rarely seen demonstrated at this scale. These 2 forms of exercise operate through different biological pathways, and staking them produces protection that is additive, not redundant. Why the benefit plateaus and what that tells us biologically. Now the finding that may matter most for anyone with a demanding schedule. The researchers found no additional reduction in mortality risk beyond 120 minutes of resistance training per week. This is worth sitting with because it runs counter to the instinctive assumption that more exercise must always equal more benefit. The data doesn't support that assumption, at least not for the specific outcome. Within this specific dose range beyond 2 hours a week, the curve flattens. More time in the gym didn't translate into a further reduction in death risk. I want to be precise about what this does and doesn't mean. It does not mean 2 hours is a hard ceiling for every possible health outcome. Athletic performance, body compositions, and other goals may well benefit from more. And it doesn't mean 119 minutes is meaningfully different from 121. What it does mean is this: for the specific outcome of long-term mortality risk, the return on additional time invested drops sharply after 2 hours a week. That is a genuinely helpful and useful piece of information for anyone trying to allocate finite and valuable resource, time, toward the interventions that matters most. What this means if you have 4 hours a week, not 40, this is where the research moves from academic interest to practical relevance. Most of the people I work with, executives, founders, senior professionals, don't have unlimited time to dedicate to physical training. What this study offers them is something far more valuable than a call to do more. It offers a defensible evidence-based minimum effective dose, 2 structured sessions per week, 45 to 60 minutes each, covering the major muscle groups. This is sufficient to fall within the range associated with the greatest observed benefits in this research. Combine that with regular aerobic activity, and the evidence suggests you are covering 2 distinct complementary biological pathways, cardiovascular and musculoskeletal, with a time investment that fits inside almost any professional schedule. This is not a compromise version of a longevity protocol based on the evidence currently available. It may be very close to the protocol itself. Science has a way of quietly correcting our assumptions. If we are willing to follow the data rather than our instincts, for years, the implicit assumption in fitness culture has been that more is always better. More hours, more intensity, more sacrifice. 30 years of data drawn from nearly 150,000 people suggests something more useful and frankly more human. That the return on your effort has a ceiling, and that ceiling is well within reach. 90 minutes a week, 2 sessions, a finding large enough and rigorous enough to change how any of us, scientists or otherwise, thinks about the time we owe our own biology. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this has helped you further managing your physical activity. Till next video.